And when we're transforming, I'm going to show you how do we get up into transformation, because we can't just want it, right? I think a lot of us want to change. You want to lose the weight. You want to move towards a better business. You want to transform your relationship. You want to do these things, but we get stuck. We go, man, I want to do it. Why can't I do it?
Entrepreneurs, business owners, high-performing practitioners. If you are constantly overwhelmed by your workload, if you feel frustrated with where you are or feel like your business is controlling your life, this episode is for you. Today, I spoke with Trevor Mauch. Trevor is an entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Carrot and The Loft, and an inspiration to me for how he has elevated and transformed his life, purpose, and service to others. I've known Trevor for many years through other mastermind groups. His insight into the struggles of entrepreneurs and business owners was one of the reasons I wanted to bring him to you today. In our conversation, expect to hear how to escape overwhelm and aim for transformation, the frameworks to clarify your purpose and goals, the danger of staying too long in default mode, the first and second steps away from failure and frustration and towards more frequent success, why avoiding burnout is harder for dentists and doctors, what Trevor uses to keep himself accountable to his vision and his goals, and much more. Please welcome Mr. Trevor Mauch. Well, Trevor, with all the years of experience that you have had as an entrepreneur, as I say, one of us, multiple companies, you've gone through many iterations of the growth as the solopreneur and then figuring out, what the stages are to go next. And you've exited businesses, you started new businesses. In all that you've learned, I think you can relate, as we all can, to that entrepreneur who has a passion for building this business, whatever it is, and having dreams about the vision of what this business is going to do for him or her. Yeah. And then somewhere down the road, that vision gets blurred and a little bit fuzzy. And there's this feeling of overwhelm. Like, oh my gosh, I'm in the weeds of this thing and this business is now consuming my life and I don't know where to go. And I've got so much to do. You work with a lot of people on this. You've done it yourself. How would you start to address that kind of a syndrome, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, dude. I think the first thing, David, is for people to recognize, number one, it's normal. When we're in those moments, I was just talking to a good friend, highly successful entrepreneur about an hour and a half ago. He coaches a lot of people. He coaches coaches. And he's in a spot where he's going through one of those challenges right now. He's in a spot where those moments where you know what to say, but sometimes you're like, you know what to do. You're like, why am I not doing this? I know what I need to do. I know I should do this more, do that more, and change this in my schedule. But for some reason, I just can't stop doing what I'm already doing. I can't step in to make that decision. The first thing I want people to recognize, you kind of alluded to it about a minute ago, is I want people to understand, what did they start the business in the first place for? This would have been about 2 years ago, David, where I was going through another one of those phases. Anytime we hit one of those, I call them pain lines. And in the business, I've talked about it before, but I can pull up a graphic if it would be helpful, or I could walk through it verbally. But 3s and 10s, things break, right? That's something I've talked before. 100,000, 300,000, a million, 3 million, 10 million. It's pretty universal across businesses. I found, David, whether I'm talking to a real estate investor, an agent, an HVAC owner, a doctor. I was talking with a good friend of mine I introduced to you, I think, a year or two ago, locally, that's a doctor. And just he wanted to get into real estate. He's going through similar things, right? So at every one of those levels, it's pretty universal that I can talk with you. If I hear what your problems and challenges are, I can probably guess what your revenue level is now at this point. And the question I want people to ask is, what did I hire my business to do for me? Right? 2 years ago, when I was going through one of those pain lines myself, up in that 8-figure mark, and things were hard, and I started to ask the question like, oh my gosh, I don't really need the extra money. Why am I pushing into this? Why am I pushing into the pain more when I don't have to, right, financially? And it popped in my mind. I'm like, man, we hire employees, we hire contractors, we hire agencies, and we hire them to do something. We hire them to solve a problem. And if they don't solve that problem, what do? Well, we make a change, hopefully. We coach the employee or we change it. We remove that agency and put a new one in. But what happens too often, David, that I've found for us is when we hire our business to do something for us, when it stops doing that for us, we just keep doing the same thing, staying in default mode, thinking someday that by doing the same thing, we will work our way out of the pain or the situational change. So I want people to pull back. And if you're in one of those spots, ask the question, what did I hire my business to do for me? And is it doing it? And if it's not doing it, recognize why and where and write those things down. Well, I hired it to do these things. I want it to fulfill this in my life, to give me this level of freedom or to do this. And then write down kind of the symptoms you're feeling that it's not doing for you, right? And usually what I'll find, David, I've got this model that I've been working on the past year that I call the 4 paths. And if you can kind of visualize it, like I said, would it be helpful to show a visual, or is this
Sure.
super audio?
No,
Okay.
no, perfect.
Let me share a visual, and I'll do my best darn job to visualize it for people who are just listening to the audio portion. But I'm sure David has a YouTube version of it. So if someone's in that spot and you're kind of in overwhelm, and David, I made this because now today, anytime I go through these challenges, James 1, I think, is such a good scripture where it's like, count all trials as joy, my brothers, because those trials will make you perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. They basically help you strengthen your resolve, strengthen your faith, right? And I had to carry that with me big time with my father's his cancer this last year. Like, man, where is there a lesson in this trial? Where am I going to get stronger because of this? Where is this going to be a part of my story and God's story to be able to help drive forward His glory? And in that, now I just look at every trial as a lesson. I go, what's the lesson here? And so about 2 years ago, when I was going through the trial, I drew over here. I drew me. I said, okay, I'm on the left side, and I want to go somewhere, right? I want to go somewhere. I want to go somewhere in the future. I need to define where that's going to be, because no matter what, I'm going to go somewhere. And it's either going to be where I want to go, or it's going to be where I don't want to go, right? Either way, we're going somewhere. And so one of the options is transformation. So transformation for me is something that you reach up into every so often. I would love to transform in one key area in my life once a year, right? Once a year. And the way that I look at those key areas, it's what I call my 6 F's. I'm going to get to a direct answer for that person who's overwhelmed and struggling and feeling stuck in their business. But I'm going to kind of take you on a journey of thought first, then we're going to drill into a specific action. But whenever I'm stuck, I go, okay, well, why do I feel stuck? Why do I feel like I can't move? Why do I feel like I can't reach up into transformation in a key part of my life? Well, the first thing I have to recognize, what parts of my life are important? What are the buckets? And where do I want to improve? We have to get clear on where we want to improve. So these 6 F's for me are faith, family, friends, fitness, finances, and fun. And I'll do this once a quarter, David, still today. It's part of my quarterly process. And I'll just do a 1 to 5, like 1 being, man, it couldn't get any worse, 5 being, it couldn't get any better in that bucket of my life. And then every year and every quarter, I'll look at this and I'll go, okay, cool. The ones that are lower, I'm going to circle 1, maybe 2 max. And I'm going to say that 1 or that 2, I'm going to really focus in on. I want to focus on really moving towards a transformation in that part of my life. Back in 2018, I was in another spot that was kind of overwhelmed and tired and wore out and second guessing, whether I could get to that next spot in my business where it could actually give me freedom. And for me, it was on the fitness side, dude. I felt I had no energy. Like, I would get home to my wife and my kids, and more days than not, I just wanted to sit on the couch because I was putting so much energy into work, and I could see the vision for it. But man, it just didn't feel like it was breaking through in some of those areas. And I felt like I just had to put more time into it, and then it would finally break through. And so I said, you know what? I need to get my energy back. And so that set me on the course in 2018 to transform my fitness. And when we're transforming, I'm going to show you how do we get up into transformation, because we can't just want it, right? I think a lot of us want to change. You want to lose the weight. You want to move towards the better business. You want to transform your relationship. You want to do these things, but we get stuck. We go, man, I want to do it. Why can't I do it? So the next path, the next one of the 4 is success. So success is kind of where a lot of us would be, or that's where we want to be, right? Man, I want to hit those goals, and I want to be able to live this lifestyle, and I want to be able to move towards these things. That's a great spot to be. And what I call the success and transformation, I call this above the line. Okay, so I'm going to color this green on this graphic here for those of you watching and those of you listening. It's a path, and we're going to go above the line and below the line here. My aim is to stay above the line in life as much as possible. I want to stay in the success bucket, whatever I deem that in these 6 areas of my life. And then every so often, every year or so, I want to reach up into transforming in one key part of my life, maybe 2 if I'm really hitting it hard that year.
We're holding a private gathering March 28th and 29th in Washington, D.C. This is where we reveal our freedom blueprint that's helped hundreds of other doctors and their spouses create the replacement income that's allowed them to have the freedom and choice about how they practice their career, escaping the chair, diversifying from Wall Street, becoming your own best financial advocate. This is not any kind of event. It's a transformational event. We keep a few guest seats available. If you'd like to see if you qualify, just schedule a discovery call. We'd love to see you there to create your freedom path.
The challenge, David, is that we go below the line. We go below the line, some of us too often. Some of us are below the line right now. Some of us stay in it too long, but all of us at some point are going to go below the line. And none of us are immune to this, okay? And we're probably going to go below the line multiple times. And so let's color below the line red. That's where in life where it's like, we don't want to be here. We don't want to be here very often. So what is below the line? Below the line is frustration. That's frustration. That's where we are going, man, at one point I got to this spot in my business and in my life where because I did transform. I stepped in and made big decisions. I had a clear vision. I did it. And then it worked. And then I was successful for a while. And then, man, because it worked so well, I kind of just kept doing what I was doing. And then what happens next, David, is you're in default. After a period of time when you're successful, we just keep doing what we've been doing. We aren't going to change anything big because we're afraid of making the decisions, or afraid of making changes, or we're just too darn busy to do so. And so we move from success into default mode. And sometimes we don't even realize we're in default mode. It just, life becomes a little bit less full. Business kind of momentum isn't picking up as much as before, but there's nothing maybe amazingly alarming at the start. You're hitting some of those goals maybe, but a lot of them not as much anymore. You like some of your work, but man, a lot of the work, you just show up and go, I'm just not getting energy from this anymore like I was. You're just in default mode. And this can be the same with any of these, with our faith, with our family and relationships and our spouses, with our fitness. I work out 2 days a week and I'll get to working out when I can. I'll schedule over those appointments, right? We're in default mode. When we stay in default mode too long, that's what leads us to frustration. Is we're just going, man, I want to improve in this part. And there's some ideas that I've gotten. I know I need to wake up earlier, or I know I need to do this marketing campaign, or I know I need to hire this person or fire this person. I know I need to do these things, but why am I not doing them? And because over and over again, we don't get the result we want, it leads us into this frustration. Now, this is where it gets hard. When we're in frustration too much, we drift. Okay. What does drifting look like? Drifting is we step into our vices. This was about 6 to 8 months ago, David, as I was looking, in my own life and business where I want to step into next, and really processing things with my dad. And honestly, I did put a few things on hold, and I just stepped deeply into this. I said, man, this is a timeline that I can't get back. And I'm going deep with my parents. Like, I'm never going to regret the amount of time we spent here. But what happened is because I did drift, or I was defaulting in some of the areas of my business, in my role. I wasn't making decisions. There's a little bit of frustration. We weren't hitting some of the goals we wanted to. Some of the things weren't moving as much. And when things are a little bit hard in one area of our life, we're kind of sometimes looking for that fix, right? You pick up the phone, and in between moments, you pick it up and you're scrolling on Instagram, or you go in and check email, or you check Slack, and you're just kind of like just wasting time. Or drifting is whatever a person's vices are. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be food, it could be TV, it could be pornography, whatever it is. Like we start to drift away to either numb the pain or get a little bit of that fix to feel good, because this here, we're in default mode and we're frustrated and we don't feel like we can get out of it. Last part here is it can lead to failure. If we stay in drift mode too long and we step into those vices too long and those vices get us, that's what really leads us to the point where, sometimes it's just, man, we hit the bottom, and we get a choice to say, man, either the bottom is going to be the spot where we bounce up, or this is where some people just give up. So the question that pops up is now, first of all, how do we stay above the line as much as possible? And then if anybody is in default mode and you just kind of feel like, man, I just feel like I'm just going through the motions, or if you're in frustration, or if you're just full blown, man, I'm frustrated. I haven't got where I wanted to go. And I do notice I'm stepping into my vices a lot. Here's the way to get out of that. Okay. The first thing we've got to do, if you're in that spot, we want to transform a key area in our lives, but we've got to take baby steps. We got to to start getting some wins first. The first thing I'm going to do, David, is you got to design. In order to step up in a transformation, we got to get clear on what we want. Where do you want to live? What's that vision look like? What is that? I call it my personal vision story. I wrote my first one 15, 16, 17 years ago. And I update it every single year, and I read it once a month. I just can almost memorize it now at this point, because every year it might kind of change 10%. It's pretty much the same vision as it was even 15 years ago. I just refine it and step it up a little bit as I improving it stronger. But we've got to really pull back and almost like play this movie in our minds of, for me, it's what does that ideal average day look like? We have to dream again. If we're in that frustration mode, man, we got to dream again. We got to feel that the future can be better. We got to feel that we have a chance to actually design our way towards the life that we want to live versus just being frustrated and having to put up with the default life that we stepped into. And so I'll sit there, Dave, and this is where I need to clear space on my calendar. Just thinking time, man. Thinking time. I'm going to make sure that I'm getting time on my calendar to work out, go on that 30-minute walk every day, whatever works for you to get the body moving and whatever works for you to get your mind clear. Could be meditation, could be reading the Bible in the morning. This morning on Thursdays, I go cold plunging in the river. It's 34 degrees last week with my buddies. Then we sauna. We do a sauna up on his property right after. We do 3 rotations. That's part of my mental clarity thing. But whatever we do, we need to step into design and say, okay, I'm drifting because I'm not clear enough on really where I want to go, what I really truly want out of life or out of this business. Now, here's the difference. And I'll toss it back over to you. Is let's say you're like, man, I've thought about my vision. I've even written a vision. I even hired someone to like do a vision extraction. And I've tried all these methods. I've read these books and I just still feel like I'm in default and frustration. And I have some level of clarity in my vision. The one key that I found, this was the one 6 months ago, David. I already had this whole model 2 years ago. The one 6 months ago, what I added to this model, I'm going to show you a couple of things here that made it finally click for this next season of me and figure out why did I stay under the line for too long. It comes down to another D word, which is decision. When we're stuck in default mode or frustration or in our vices, we're usually not out of lack of ideas, right? We're usually like in your group, if there's people who are stuck, I guarantee they can call you or someone in the group, or they probably already have the resource and they've probably already had a coaching call that said, here's maybe something that you should do. They're just not doing it. And so it's usually not a lack of ideas. When we're in default mode, we stack ideas up left and right. I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. Someone said I should do this. I read this book, do this. What keeps us below the line is indecision. Okay. Is us saying, I'm so used to this life and I'm so afraid maybe to make a leap that I can't make a decision on what to say no to and what to say yes to. And that's where I want you to really have people really get really clear in that vision and ask yourself as you're going through and thinking about that ideal average day, or you wrote it down, you're reading the sentences, ask yourself, does this feel light? Like when your vision feels light, it's right. Light is right. If it feels heavy, it's probably not a vision that you actually want, right? You might not want that goal. You might not actually want that life. You might just think that that's what you should want. So give yourself permission to want what you want and really move towards service versus significance, service versus ego. That's where it feels light. But then if you're in default mode, pull back and say, okay, yes, I'm clear. I'm excited about where I want to go. And then write down a few of the things that come from that vision and say, okay, what are a couple things in that ideal average day that I do maybe in the morning or the afternoon or something I do in work that will light me up that I'm not doing now? Pick 1 or 2 things and ask the question of why not now? Why does that have to be in the future? Why can't that part of that life be now? And I can change my schedule and I can start to do that tomorrow. Get little wins, stack up little wins, say yes, make decisions, and say no to filling that calendar with other things that are more of the default. The more that we start to bring that vision forward and say, why not now? And then start to look at this list of things we could do to live the life and run the business that we want, make the hire, let go of that wrong person, step into a new role, make a gap, whatever it's going to be. We need to start saying no to way more things and move up here to say, I need to make a few key decisions this year that are going to lead me into that design, which are going to lead me up to transformation. So I'll finish there. I know that was a lot. We can go any direction you want to go, but I think people just need to picture, number one, you're not going to be in this forever. Recognize it's temporary. You will be back up above the line if you're below it now. And if you're above it, eventually you'll probably be below it. We just hope we don't dip down too far.
Right. No, that's really good. I appreciate you laying it out with such a clear graphic that I know you put a lot of time and thought into it, and it makes a lot of sense. I think certainly you're right that indecision is one of the biggest problems because oftentimes we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to make that decision because, as you said, we are in a realm that perhaps we are treading water. It's the way I look at it. I'm treading water. I'm keeping things afloat. And if I make any other move, then I could go under. And then, boy, that's lights out. So I'm not going to do anything. I'll just keep going ahead. One of the things I want to go back to that you could help me with, and probably our listeners, you mentioned that starting out, we can move to a realm of success. Maybe as the early entrepreneur, we have this vision. And a lot of times the vision is, as an entrepreneur, I want some control. I want control of my destiny, my future. So I'm going to build something that's going to let me have control. But then oftentimes that business takes control over us. So it becomes a problem. But let's say, as you said, we get to success to a level, right? So things are at least moving along, and we've had some movement uphill, and we've got some revenue, we've got some profit, we're paying some bills. That's first stage, right? Is part of the fact that some of the frustration comes from, and then the drift from the fact that we get bored or we start to get burned out because we're kind of on this, we got to this one point, but it's just kind of revolving and nothing's changing. Is that part of what can cause us to drift and go, yeah, I'm kind of getting bored of this, and I don't know how to take it to the next level? Well, again, whatever the next level is, because that's where the clarity of vision comes from. Well, what's next level? Well, I don't know. Let's back it back into what you really want, right? Then we can figure out what next level is.
Dude, 100%. I'm going to go up here to, I think you've seen this before, my entrepreneur freedom formula. And this is just how I think about business and entrepreneurship. And I'm going to verbalize it. When we get into those spots like that, David, there's a couple things. So we had an initial vision, right? Hey, I want to be a doctor or a dentist or a real estate investor or whatever that's going to be, an entrepreneur. We wanted to oftentimes move away from something that we didn't like. It was a career path that was dead, or an income ceiling, or someone saying we couldn't do something, or whatever it's going to be. And we're like, awesome, this is going to do it. I've got a vision. That vision excited us at the start. It was new, it was fresh, right? So we created a strategy. Hey, I'm going to go work for an office first, and then 3 years later, have my own or buy one, or whatever that strategy is going to be. We build a business that gets consistent, right? Consistent profits were coming. And that's the first step. We got to have a vision, some level of purpose behind that, more than just money, and then build a revenue machine, consistent profits. And then I think this is where a lot of medical practitioners have a harder time. And I think part of it is built in the model, right? Part of it's built in the model where if you're a dentist or a doctor, like my friend locally here, he's a doctor, he's had the hardest time trying to recruit someone to replace himself in to do that work, right? That's hard. That's a legitimate challenge that I may not have in my business. I might have a more plentiful pool of people to replace my talents in my business because they don't have to go to medical school to get it. And so when we get up into here, into the next stage, is we're working overtime, but the business is consistent, we're making good money. Really, in order to have that business of freedom and impact, you need to start to buy back your time and energy, right? And so what I've seen done, I've got a friend here locally, he's a dentist. They acquired the business from his dad, who is also a dentist. And it's a husband and wife team, and they're both dentists. And I know him really, really well. One thing that he does in order to stay energized and motivated is he has a full schedule of hobbies and things outside of work. He's like, this business, I never want it to get to a spot where I resent it because it's preventing me from doing the things I want to do. It goes back to that question, David, of what did you hire your business to do for you? And for him, he has these non-negotiables. We don't work Fridays because we go hang out as a family. He hunts every single season, never misses a season. He's always at his wrestling practices and wrestling meets with his son. And you can go down the list. And so he's made decisions to say, well, yeah, I could make a little bit extra money by working that Friday or not doing this, but I want to use the money that I've got to buy back my time, to do things that give me energy. And so I think that's the first thing that people should do, is see if we can make our current business give us energy again. Because that's like the best part of it. And if we can't find someone to replace ourselves, like as an example, like a dentist to take over, his dad was fortunate because he has a kid who wanted to become a dentist. But what if he didn't? And I'm assuming most dentists probably don't have the luxury of the kid who wants to step right into that business. Maybe a lot of you.
Yeah, not often.
And so the decision that he can make is, once again, write down that list of things that give you energy. Write down that list of non-negotiables and say, I've hired this business to do these things in my life, and it's worth it for me to step in and say yes to these things and no to 5 more patients a week or whatever it's going to be. And you are going to have to trade some money. But now let's say you do that, you get some of your time and energy back a little bit. We go back up to the top of the entrepreneur freedom formula, up to the purpose bucket. And this is where I've seen people, whether they're in the medical field or other industries, this is where you get a chance to level up if you want, because you've got more time, you bought some of your time back. In general, have energy, have a good, consistent business. And in this circle here is about every 3 years, you go around that circle clockwise, right? From purpose to to consistent profit to energy, time back to purpose through the vision strategy, buying back the time on all the way up. Once we bought the time back now and we have a consistent business, then we get a chance to say, great, is this business doing what I want it to do? Is there a next level to this business? Let me latch in now that I've got more free mental space. Let me dream about that life vision. Am I living that? Is that what I truly want? And then we get a chance to upgrade our identity and upgrade that vision, refuel the vision for the next stage. And it may be, you know what? Oh, I love my business, but I'm not going to work Thursdays either. Or, you know what? I am going to go and find a practitioner to start to come in here and work with us. Or I'm going to create an innovative approach in my business where it can have a revenue engine that isn't reliant on having it be a practitioner. Maybe it's aesthetics, or maybe it's something else that's a different business model that lends itself to allowing you not to be there in the day to day. But I think this is what we have to think about when we're in those spots. Get the things on your calendar that give you energy that you love. Look at that vision and say, why not now on some of those things? Why does it have to be in 5 years or 10 years or 15? Why can't I have coffee with my wife in the morning till 9 or 10 now? I just need to make a decision to make an adjustment.
Kind of reminds me of a model, the financial aspects of business. You're probably familiar with a friend of mine, probably know him, Trevor, Mike McAllowitz in Profit First.
Oh yeah, dude, I love Mike.
Yeah. So same thing. What he says is of course, you got to carve off, your profit before you look at all the expenses. And same thing here. You're saying put on the calendar, carve off those things that allow you to maintain your energy or revive your energy first. Because if you don't do that, you'll just always accept the breadcrumbs, which is where you run out of energy. And through the whole energy audit, you're going to find out that your burnout happens. I was just thinking about that at the same time you were talking about it. I thought it's just similar concept.
Dude, 100%. And you just saw me move my screen over to something else. This might be overkill for some people, but I coach about 30 to 35 entrepreneurs in my Epic program. And in this year, I said, well, let me give them my annual process, like my workbook. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I have a personal vision side of it where I dive in and do my audit. Like I talked with you about, there's the 6 F's and what do I want to reflect on? Where do I want to improve? Then I kind of map out what is that life I want to live, and the security life, comfort life, and luxury life, rather than just one magic number. I like to have the 3. And I create a moat around each one of these levels before I move on to the next. I'm talking like it's locked in. It's paid for, it's paid off, it's debt-free before I even reach up. But where I want to go with this is as I'm writing my goals and getting clear. So this is me designing, right? This is me saying, I want to design that transformation in those key areas. I want to look at the identity and say, if that's what I want in my life and I truly want it and it feels light, then I say, great, well, how do I shift my identity more towards that now? Like, where am I not showing up in the way that version of me would? And every year I want to step into that. And so I've got this identity integrator process. And I think it's simple in thought, hard in practice. As I'm looking at that vision, I look at my current circumstance and there's probably a gap between where I am and where I want to go. And then I start to kind of do an audit and say, great, like where am I doing good and where do I want to get better and where am I showing up good in life and where am I not? I then come up with what I call 5 daily non-negotiables. And I'm actually showing my actual ones. I think this is the first time I've actually showed it. These are my actual one for 2025. And there's some things I want to get better at. There's some things I want to step into. And so every day I have these 5 daily non-negotiables. One of my items on a transformation, I had an amazing faith journey last year with everything with my dad. And that was just so special. But I'm like, man, I just want to get even closer to God this year. And so one of my non-negotiables is opening up the Bible and reading it every day. That's just something I haven't been that consistent in, but I have been now lately. I've been reading Proverbs every day. So today's the 6th. I read Proverbs 6 today. And then as a family, we've been deep in prayer for years. The next one was strength in body. That's been something that's been pretty good. But the last 6-8 months, man, I just kind of let that part go a little bit more than I wanted to. The next one is like, man, I'm going to read. So daily workouts. So the next one is I read my goals daily. And so I've got a little prompt that comes up on my phone, David. So when you're stuck in those spots, those hard spots, the best thing I can do is get that clear mental space. And then I force myself to get back up into looking at my design, looking at my vision as much as possible, because I need to believe that it can be true again. I need to get excited about it. And so I have this prompt that comes up 3 times a day on my phone, and I'll catch it most times, but it goes, hey, how'd you do on those things? Like, did you do those things? Did you read your 10 pages today? Did you get your workout in? Did you read your goals 3 times? And if it's the read the goals one, I tap it and then it brings up my goals automatically on my phone. I can just like, cool, I'm going to spend a minute reading them, read my identity statement. And I know this sounds weird and woo-woo-y, but especially when we're in those hard spots, we need to program and tell the right story in our mind. We need to feed our mind with the right things constantly, all the time. One last thing I'm going to toss at you that's been magical for me that I think everybody in this call can and should do is, especially if you're in a spot where it's overwhelmed or you just feel like, man, here's another year went by and I didn't make these changes and it was hard again. Or man, if you're on fire and you're like, dude, I'm on fire, I want to make next year the best ever. I sit down with my wife after I get kind of clear on things. And I have this thing I call the pre-stacked year that you can see on the screen. It's a calendar that's set up in kind of a unique way, right? It's not like the normal 12 months and squares. Because I want to see all the weekends lined up. I want to see my Mondays lined up, Tuesdays lined up. I want to be able to visually look at the year and go, where are there gaps? Where is it full? Where is it out of balance between work colors and life colors and things like that? And so my wife will sit there. We do this every year. And then we have a quarterly retreat. And we go away for a night or two. We pull this up. We just talk and date each other again and dive in and dream and talk about the hard stuff too. But we'll pull this up and we'll go, awesome. Let's first add the family stuff. Let's first not add the work stuff, not that work trip, not I need to do this work stuff. Let's go, what did I hire this business to do for me? No matter what my current work circumstance is, I'm making decisions right now. I'm going up to design and I'm making decisions. Because if we wait for 3-4 months, David, and we had this intention to go on this trip or this intention, you're not going to do it.
No.
Not going to do it. So we do it in December. We make the decisions, we pre-decide. So these become a part of our lives. And so we get all the kids' activities. It's a pretty busy spring with the dance and the my son's 4-H and all that kind of stuff. And then we get the personal travel in. We've got a cruise with family, and then some friends are coming down. We're going camping, going to go to the lake cabin for a while. We've got our quarterly date nights, and we've got Christmas, and got the Kentucky Derby coming up, and like we've got some other things. Planning the family events. So there's Fair Week, which, man, we got to do that for the sheep, for my kids' sheep. And then I'll plan in the business stuff. Carving out a little bit of time. I think when we're overwhelmed, we go into our vices. We go into turn on that TV. We look at Instagram. We doom scroll. We do the things that just feel good in that moment.
Yes.
Put a fail-safe system in place if possible to remove yourself from your number one vice. Sit down with some clear time and say, okay, what do I want? Let's put it on the calendar.
It's really living life with full intentionality is what you're doing. And it's the reverse of what most of us do, certainly starting out in life. And we have to come back and I think have the clarity to map out, back to your point of dream again. What's the vision? What did I get started in this endeavor for? Is it providing that? Why is it not? I know there's so much more. We could probably do one of these every day or come back every week. I know you're doing a lot of these anyway with people. You cover a lot in a short period of time, and there's so much more. I really appreciate you taking time to really bring out some really, I think, critical frameworks for people to see and filter through the lens of these frameworks. I love frameworks too, and I think it's so helpful when we are in a position where we don't have that clarity, where we're lacking something. We all do. We all get there. And I think so many times it's helpful to have somebody else help guide us to look in on what we're doing and take us down a path where it's like, oh, now I see. Yeah, it's magnificent what you're doing, and I appreciate that. I know there's so much growth that you continue to do in your own life, and you're sharing that with other people, and I think that's tremendous, Trevor. And I so much appreciate. I know our listeners do as well.
I appreciate you too, David. And the thing I'll kind of leave with is in that journey with my dad's illness, and we were talking right before we hit record that you have a similar experience, and it really forces you to think, right? You remember when you're going through something like that, like, oh man, I'm not going to be here forever, or that person's not going to be here forever, or even a different variation of it. My body is not going to feel like this and be this capable forever. And it just takes one injury to now not be able to do all these things that you love.
That's right.
And so when I'm thinking about work and I'm thinking about life and thinking about how they intertwine, that's the thing I want people to think about is pull up out of default mode, even if it's for an hour this week, even if it's for 10 minutes this week, and just say, what's that dream, right? What can I change today that I do have the power to make a decision on? It might be a hard decision, but it's a decision, and make a decision that scares you a little bit this next couple of weeks and moves you closer to that. So you don't look back and regret that, man, I didn't have the time with my dad or my mom, or man, I wish I would have done that thing before this injury happened in my life or whatever. Guys, you got it in you. You have an amazing business. I'm sure that with a couple tweaks can be a joy for you again. So I'm excited for everybody.
Well, Trevor, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we'll come back and do this again and just take a deeper dive as we can go. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
I want to expand on some items from my conversation with Trevor and give you some of my observations and formulations from my own life. First and foremost, Trevor is the real deal. He's authentic. He speaks from true experience, not just theory. He has done what he said he's done, and he also alludes to all the same issues, constraint factors, twists and turns of his own entrepreneurial journey. In other words, it wasn't straight, linear move up to the top. It was always a zigzag. And he's gone through, just like all of us, business hardships, family hardships, health hardships, financial. The whole gamut is there for us as entrepreneurs. So that's really why Trevor, I think, brings really an enlightenment to all of us and an inspiration to all of us who know that the path of being an entrepreneur, while it's something that we all aspire to do, it can come with a lot of downsides. And it can also feel very, very alone at times, because how many people really understand the world in which we live? Next thought I had was in regards to default mode. Does staying in default mode affect more than just the business owner or practitioner? Is there a cost outside their career or business for staying too long in default mode? Well, staying in default mode doesn't affect just the business owner or the private practice owner. It affects really the entire culture of in this case, the service of the business itself. Culture is everything. And if our team, our staff, and even our patients don't feel inspired, it's because we're not inspired. It starts at the top. Leadership, vision, everything we bring to our team is something that trickles down. If we're not good leaders, if we're feeling the difficulties of the obstacles, the challenges, which we all have, and we let that pervade our culture and pervade our very well-being and pervade the way we show up or don't show up, then this has an effect overall in the entire culture. So no, it doesn't affect just the business owner. It affects all stakeholders in the actual business. Next thought. People just think that they can grind their way to success. Is this true? Why or why not? I think grinding is a misnomer. I am often pulled into some of the discussion groups that I see, particularly in the professional practice arena, of hardworking, very skilled, very invested in their education, their service, private practice practitioners, professionals, healthcare. And I read about the fact that they state many times that the way to achieve in life, the way to get ahead, the way to get what they want is you have to work harder than anybody else. Now, I will say there's a time in life when one needs to work hard. There is a sacrifice period, no question about it. Unless you're handed a silver spoon in your mouth or a lottery ticket or some inheritance, then there is a sacrifice period. The problem is too many people think that you have to stay on this hardworking, ever inclining, moving faster treadmill. And that's not the case. I can promise you that. That's where I think there is misguided misinformation about just grinding. If you're still grinding, I tell people if you're still grinding, after 7 or 8 years, probably really even after 5, that's too long. And people say, well, you have to do that, David. I say, no, you don't. These are the self-limiting beliefs that we all take in our life. And certainly working hard is a great character to have. Work ethic is important, but working smarter is the way to real success, and success meaning not more money, bigger lifestyle, but about having more options in life and enjoying the journey in what you provide and the problems you solve in your business, your career, your technical skills. That's the fun part. And if you're always grinding, you don't ever feel really good about it. Every time that Sunday evening comes, Sunday afternoon, and you're looking at the next day, Monday, if you're not looking forward to it with a lot of glee, a lot of exhilaration, a lot of energy, then you're grinding. And it's time to make that model change. I don't think anybody should grind that hard. Work hard in the early years and move that to your balance sheet of net worth and investments as quickly as you can by not letting your lifestyle elevate. That's a provocation for another day, but that's one of my biggest challenges to young people is don't let your lifestyle overextend what you're able to earn. Put your capital in investments as quickly as possible so that you are having replacement income start in your life way earlier than the so-called retirement stage of life. Next thought, would it be worthwhile for the younger generation to clarify at least part of their current purpose? If so, what would you say to the 18-year-old about purpose and intentional exploration? Well, yes, I would say we go through life in phases, and there's a maturation phase. For sure, I didn't know what my purpose was in life, certainly by 18. By 18, I was just finishing high school, getting ready to go to college, and certainly had my sights set on a professional practice career. But that didn't mean that was my purpose. That's just what I felt like I was good at. It was something that society said was a good thing to do. No regrets about that at all, by the way. I had a great run in private practice. But that wasn't my real purpose in life. And who's to know that at 18 or 20 or 22 or even 25? Look, I think the best thing to do for young people is experiment, explore. I am a big advocate of not getting too roped into one particular specialized arena, a specialized degree path that's too specialized too quickly. Keep a broader scope and experiment, explore by putting yourself with other mentors in other businesses. See the lay of the land before you get dug in. And once you have the chance to explore, then you're going to have a lot more idea what your real purpose is in life and how to go about it. Most spend their lives optimizing for wealth, net worth, and quantity, thinking them the accurate measuring sticks for success or the magical portals into the lives they want. I believe most people are optimizing for the wrong thing. Time is the greatest resource, and time is what we all want more of in the end. But it's not just about the quantity of time, it's about how you spend it. How you spend your time is the most accurate measuring stick of the success of your life. So, how can you optimize your life, business, and decisions for more time? And how can you upgrade where you spend your time to improve quality and the satisfaction of life? My new book, Scaling Time versus Wealth, lays the groundwork for these questions and provides the lens through which you can filter your decisions to optimize for time and how you spend it. You can get your free copy at scalingtimeversuswealth.com. That's scalingtimeversuswealth.com. And thanks for tuning in. Be sure to click that subscribe or follow button and let us know what you want to hear more of in the future. I'll see you next time.